In this video, we're going to look at some important definitions that we need to understand for the rest of the course. We're going to define the following: administrative enforcement action, administrative law judge, adjudicate. We're going to talk about the difference between general and specific authorities. We will then continue to define injunction and jurisdiction. We will talk about the difference between civil and criminal litigation, the difference between a natural and legal person, and we will conclude by defining private right of action. An administrative enforcement action is an action carried out by an agency or department with the authority to enforce a law. And the Administrative Procedure Act, or APA, outlines administrative enforcement actions. An administrative law judge, or ALJ, is a judge that oversees hearings concerning administrative enforcement actions. We typically see administrative enforcement actions and administrative law judges when we're talking about the enforcement of rules and regulations by executive branch agencies and departments. Adjudicate means to make an official decision about who is right in a dispute. When we're talking about the difference between a general and specific authority, we're usually doing so within the context of an executive branch agency or department implementing a law or enforcing a law or policy. A general authority would be for an agency to do something within a specific category. For example, the Federal Trade Commission, or the FTC, has the right to regulate unfair or deceptive trade practices. You'll see here that unfair or deceptive trade practices is quite broad, and that's intentionally so. And so this is a general authority. A specific authority, however, pertains to a specific statute. One example would be the Department of Education's authority to implement and enforce the Family Educational Rights and Privacy Act, or FERPA, which was enacted in 1974. And so again, we can see the difference between general and specific authority. General is, well, just that, it's general, while specific is specified. An injunction is a court order to cease an activity. Jurisdiction refers to the power, right, or authority to interpret, apply, and declare the law by rendering a decision. And litigation is the act, process, or practice of settling a dispute in a court of law. Now let's talk a little bit about the difference between civil and criminal litigation. And the best way I think to do these is to compare and contrast the two. And we're going to compare and contrast civil and criminal law with regards to the injured party, who brings the litigation, and potential penalties. With regards to the injured party, we see that within civil litigation, that the suit is brought by an individual or an organization, whereas in the criminal litigation context, the injured party is society. With regards to what brings about a civil lawsuit, it is often a contract or tort dispute, whereas within the criminal context, it is the government that brings the suit against the individual, the defendant, and they do so due to a violation of the law. Potential civil penalties are often fines, and in the criminal context, penalties can be fines, imprisonment, and even, in some states, the death penalty. In the United States, both a natural person or a human being is considered a person, as is an organization such as a corporation or a company. So a natural person is going to be a human being, whereas a legal person is an entity or organization with rights. And finally, the private right of action is a right to begin and prosecute an action in the courts. For example, to enforce a right or redress a wrong. In this lecture, we've looked at a number of different legal terms that are really very crucial to the rest of the course. These include administrative enforcement action, administrative law judge, adjudicate, general versus specific authority, know the difference between those two, injunction, jurisdiction, criminal versus civil litigation, natural versus legal person, and finally, private right of action. You want to make sure you understand all of these terms for the CIPP US exam.